Okay.
All right, cool. Well, hello and welcome. So Di and I were having a bit of a conversation yesterday in regards to how we're managing this new Slack channel we have for Australian innovation ecosystem leaders within the Australian innovation community. And so we figured we have a bit of a yarn and share a little bit about what's happening in the Slack channel, what we're seeing over the last couple of weeks as the community has grown, and also what some of the influences and impacts are from obviously the top of mind with the coronavirus happening on the Australian innovation community and those supporting entrepreneurs to grow their business. Morning, Di.
Hi, Tab. How you going?
Good. So what I might do is I might just walk through the Slack channel as a bit of an intro because we get a bit of questions as far as what is Slack and what it's all about. That'll also kind of help frame kind of why we set up this program in the first place and kind of what we're all doing here. So what I might do is I might just share my screen and we'll get it going. So, and you can see that okay, Di?
Yeah, sure can.
Great. So welcome, this is Slack. And when you first come into the Slack channel, it can be a bit, there can be a lot seems to be happening. Down the left, you have your channels and the different people that are involved in the Slack community. And then when you click on a certain channel, then that content comes up in the middle. And then you kind of see the details here. And then, yeah, down below, different individuals that you can also then chat with. I guess
quite a growing list.
It is quite a growing list. What's your experience when you first come into Slack and you kind of see this? Obviously, I'm pretty used to it, but like,
yeah,
what do you think?
It's pretty overwhelming. Like it's there is a lot of content and a lot of stuff going on here, and that that's normal when we first set this up. Like, in some respects, it's just trying to see where the activity is and what the needs are. So, but just overwhelming at first and a little bit time consuming at the start. But once you sort of find those channels that are really relevant for you, it does start to unpack. And just the amount of people that are on this hub is quite incredible. But I think at the first piece, it is overwhelming. There's a lot of information there, but like I think as you've set out the checklist, it's important that people take the time to find what's relevant for them.
You bet. And so I might just do a bit of an intro on kind of why we set this up and what we're all about here. And just to give you a bit of what I'm looking at here is the desktop app of Slack. And so down the left, you can see different Slack communities I'm involved with, and then the particular community I'm in here on the channels. And one of the things that we're going to be seeing with everybody working from home and not being attached to a physical space, like Slack has just increased exponentially as far as the use goes. And so more and more people are going to be using this, and so it's good to kind of become aware of it and how to use it. One of the first things we do is we point people to About Us, because that gives you a bit of an introduction. In here, you have a bit of a checklist for first timers where you can read this post, introduce yourselves on the introduction channel, have a browse through the channels, and just kind of have a bit of fun. With the vision and the audience for how we set it up, look, our aim really is to build up the capacity and capability within Australian innovation ecosystem builders. This is for the people that actually support both delivering innovation within the communities as well as helping other people build, grow, and scale their business. And it kind of came about when Andrew Althway over in WA posted something on LinkedIn. I looked at that when he said, hey, look, how do we support ecosystem builders? How do we support the innovation ecosystem? And I said, Andrew, how about if we get a webinar together to see who else is out there? Is there a bit of interest for us coming together? We did that. We had about 200 people sign up within the first few hours. That showed us there was a bit of demand. We also reached out to Di down in New South Wales and said, Di, well, what do you think? It's one of the thought leaders within particular regional innovation and agriculture and overseas with an emphasis in Israel. And Di came on board. Di, you set up the Slack channel and got it going. And maybe just pause here and Di, when we all started doing this thing a couple of weeks back, what were you thinking, and where did you think it was going, who it was for?
Definitely for those, what I refer to as the activators, right? So the builders out there, like I'm one of those in Wagga. So I know the need for good information and content, and just having a connection with people that could support each other as we go through this. And like Chad, this is how we met, right? Way back in the Pitch Fest days. But when we kind of highlighted there are a lot of these people across the nation, and there's nothing out there that connects us all and helps us come together. And I think, you know, as sad as it is, that COVID-19 has provided the catalyst to be able to bring that community together. And to me, that's sort of what I wasn't really thinking of that at the time. It was like, right, let's do this, let's put something out there. The fact that we kind of did it very startup style and just put something out there and saw what the market reaction was, and it was incredible, the amount of people that were wanting something like this and this type of conversation. It was like, okay, so there's a need here, let's keep growing and building this. But no, it just sort of, you know, you climb into action and you go, yep, that's what we've got to do, let's go, let's do it. And you know, Andrew kind of provided the kindling, and from there it's just grown exponentially.
Yeah. And we are all coming, like we had the conversation initially, should this be under a banner or a brand? And of course, as soon as you do that, then if somebody doesn't align with that brand, then maybe they won't be involved. And so we really kept it open. Like all of us have our kind of our organizations we work with or for. You know, I'm with the Global Entrepreneurship Network and Startup Status, and work a bit with the Queensland University of Technology, QUT, and USQ. And you're with Bridge Hub down there. But we've kind of intentionally not put it under any one of those brands. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was really important at the start, because it wasn't about us as individuals or who we represent. It was about community, and still is, you know. But the importance of it not having a brand, it was to try in reflection, I guess, like lead by that example, that now is the time to collaborate and now is the time to pull together.
Yeah, and you're right. It has had a bit of an uptake. I mean, we've got about around 360 active members at the moment. And they've contributed, like in the last week and a bit, around, I think we're up to like 3,000 interactions. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So there is a bit of an uptake, and now we're just saying, well, how do we best support it moving forward? I'm going to go into a bit of the etiquette, and just these kind of set guidelines for the channel. One of them is give as much as you get. This isn't necessarily a place to come in and just consume and take. If you're going to take something, if you can take content and information, that's great, but also maybe comment on other people, see how you can support other people in conversations they're having, and give back a bit, even if it's just a bit of a thumbs up on what they're saying or a bit of affirmation, or maybe making a connection if somebody's looking for a bit of help, if you know someone who can help. The second one is around being kind and assuming positive intent. You know, especially now, there's a lot of fear going on and a lot of concern and worry. And how do we just kind of assume everybody's trying just to help out and do the best they can?
And I mean, that's something we really spoke about right at the start, Chad. Like we were talking about that need to come together and really show that from a leadership perspective. It's so important for our hub leaders to be able to show that that type of leadership and that calm, but also the positivity and the opportunity as well, without ignoring the harsh realities of where we're at. Yeah,
and it's that point that you made before, and it's something like just, you know, feedback that I saw you exhibit back in the Regional Pitch Fest days as well. It really is just that giving before you get, the kindness, the always looking after the outcome and stuff, which really does just bring the people together, as we've seen in physical hubs. Now we're seeing it here with the virtual.
Yeah, and that's the fun bit. Anyway, I'll let you go on.
So we also, please check with the moderator before adding channels. Look, we set the channels up in a particular way, which I'll talk about shortly. So if you're going to be setting something up, just let us know beforehand. We're happy to support, but there's a process that goes behind it of adding people to it and adding it to the initial, when somebody signs up, making sure they get into those channels. Also, feeling free to share about your services, but this isn't necessarily a sales point. If all you're doing is coming in and just blasting, hey, here's what I can offer, in all the different channels, and a bit of a kind of a consuming model, that's probably not really what we're after. And then also by default, everybody's added to all channels. And so if you're going to be adding something to a channel, you don't have to add it to all of them, because everybody will see it in any one given one. Sometimes there is value in posting to one or two, especially with the coronavirus. If there's something that goes, say, for data, and that data is specific also to the current situation with COVID-19, maybe in a couple, but you don't have to blast it into 5 or 6. everybody sees all channels.
And I think important there too, Chad, like with the events channel there as well, like people have got a lot of things going on. And, you know, like we want to be able to see what activities other people can plug into. But yeah, it's definitely not a sales platform.
No. And that's also why we commented about notifying, like you can use the @ channel, which we have actually turned off because people are just so consumed with information. When we do our weekly surveys, one of the things that came back is that people are like, I have so much, how do I make sense of just this flood of data that's coming at me now? Let's really try and take care of what they can see. And finally, the focus is on the people who can build the ecosystem as compared to, say, maybe a startup. And we've had some startups come in, they look at some of the conversations and like, I'm not sure if this is the best for me at the time, because maybe they're looking for funding or they need to validate their ideas, and the people that are in this channel do that kind of stuff on a day-to-day basis, but they do it in their community. This is more a community for the people that help others in their communities. And so what we try and do is if we come across those people, we funnel them into somebody who can help them outside of this. It's almost like you got your teachers and your schools, and this is for like the teachers to come together to figure out how we support each other so we can be best equipped to support the students or the entrepreneurs and develop an innovation while they're out there. Would you say that's fair, Di?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, those few examples of people coming in and they're almost seeing it themselves, so self-selecting out. But you know, I think it's just that note, don't blast this as the resource to pass on to all your startups. This is for you as individuals. Yeah.
And I'll touch on that on the other point as well, which is around the invitations. And so it is invitation only. Anybody can invite anybody, but we do just ask you to take care. Quite often, a lot of people are coming through Di or myself initially. But if you do send it out, just kind of make sure it's people that you think would align with what we're trying to achieve here. And I'll touch on the structure real quick. A couple of different ways that I've seen Slack channels set up. One of them is a few channels that everybody posts in, and then there's this way, which is a heck of a lot of channels. And these channels are split into 4 broad categories. You have channels about certain roles in the ecosystem, like say accelerators or events, award programs, hubs. You have channels about industry sectors, so agriculture, defense, mining. You have channels around themes or topics like the coronavirus or gender. And finally, one's just general for the community, like the general channel or the how can I help, or I have this to help other people. There's a lot, but this actually reflects the innovation ecosystem. It reflects the complexity of what we're all about. And so to create something for innovation leaders, what we would find, and when certain Slack channels have been attempted, because this isn't the first time this thing's been given a go, what we see is that everybody jams into the one channel and it's like, well, how do I make sense of all of that? Whereas this one, what we want to do is try and create a home for people. If you're into the circular economy, come in here and have conversations around that topic. If you're focused on agriculture, this also isn't trying to be all things for all people, in that there's other channels specific to ag tech. And in there, I would expect channels about, beef or grain or sheep. We're not going to get that detailed here. We're just going to say, well, here's ag tech in general for innovation leaders. And if you want your specific ag tech conversation, you go into your community. This isn't, again, trying to be all things to all people. How do you think that's working, Di?
Yeah, look, I think it's starting, and yeah, we're definitely not trying to recreate the wheel. So where there are like specific group Slack channels or communities, we definitely want to engage and point people in that direction. I think the important thing here is that as these smaller sub-communities build up, but there's still the opportunity to look across sector, across industry. And that's really important because, that's sometimes where the magic can happen. So still having people that can come in here, they might be, say, ag tech specific, but they can look at what other hubs are doing, what other sectors are doing, and sort of take some of that high level information or resource is still really vital. So that's why we're not going to get as granular, but it's still an important piece to have all of these different things, like you said, that reflect what our ecosystem actually does, and it's quite complex. Yeah,
that's good. And finally, we have a bit of a code of conduct, and this is just a bit of a reference point in case anything does. We are in community, and you'll get all sorts within community. If anything ever happens, there's a bit of an escalation point in here and an explanation on why someone like Di or myself or other moderators we might bring on board would make decisions in a certain way. So just a bit of a rules of engagement and how we expect to conduct ourselves in the community. Any other points, any other thoughts on that, Di?
No, I think like, what we're trying to do with all of this is reflect that if you walked into a physical hub, what would that look like, and what would that, what are the rules that you get when you walk in there, and how is it structured, and how do people interact, and how does that all occur? And this is, if you think of it, that virtual hub for all of the innovation leaders. So if you think of it as a hub, that's sort of what we're trying to achieve virtually.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you raised, Di, and I think that's probably part of the success within the audience that we have, is that a lot of these people are used to this. Like they're used to running hubs. When they come on board, somebody like I try and get in there and greet everybody with a bit of a smile and an explanation on where to go. They know how to interact with other people. They understand, like, the only function we have here, and you and I were talking about this last night, is our role is simply as a connector. That is it. We're not necessarily here to solve all your problems. We're not here to actually, deliver all the content or all the answers. There's no way we can be an expert in all the different channels that are here. But what we can do is we can maybe connect you with people that are the experts and let them shine, to the point where if people didn't know we existed, but this hub was thumping along and doing its thing, that would actually be a win. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that, that opportunity for collision is what hubs are all about. And that's where that cross-sector piece comes in. That's where meeting new people, having conversations, exploring what others are doing. It's that whole essence of what a hub is. So yeah, that's definitely what we're trying to achieve here. And like you say, like, a lot of people, this is their norm, right? But there are a few that are coming in that don't live in that space, that are, more of those feeder organizations that don't live and breathe in a hub. So it's going to be a bit of an experiment for them as well.
Yeah, and I guess also for those people, we're trying to create a bit of we're very intentional about culture, and creating a culture that is a safe place, that people can feel free, they can ask a question, they can get help, they can give back. In the midst of just the noisy world that might be happening, come in here and get a few answers and then go out and do my thing.
Yeah.
Just one other point, just briefly. So when you come in, one of the things that I do is I try and just seed the channels with content. I go through the media, do a bit of a review of the Fin Review, any other newsletters or posts that come through, just post in a few different channels. When you come in, you'll see things highlighted in white, like you see here with the schools, or somebody may have posted in and it's new. And then when I go in here and click on it, I can read what they have to say, and then comment on it, reply to it. And then when I go away, then that's turned off again. So that helps you kind of keep track of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And if there are people who comment on things, you can see the thing at the top where it says more unreads, and it'll take you right up to it, and it'll highlight threads that are relevant to things you're talking about. And if somebody mentions you specifically, or if you're having a direct chat like I am with Jason and Johanna down here, it'll highlight that. So it always gives you stuff on what you can do next. So a bit of a guiding there, so you don't feel too lost. If it's not highlighted white, nothing's really been happening in there. So you don't necessarily have to drill through everything every day.
I think too, like for people that just jump on board for the first time, trying to understand who is actually in this channel, who is here, because there's a lot of people here that maybe take us through the introduction.
Yeah, it's a good point. And we do ask people just to do a bit of a scroll through the intros. Definitely post your own post in the intro. You can see here, people do just post in. Sometimes people will say, hey, good to see you here. They have a bit of a chat. You can see here where a few replies. Mark came on board and we had a bit of a conversation with him. And so people come in and they say, here's what I have to offer. Here's things that are going on. And they immediately quite often go into some of the other channels and then post direct content into there. But we do ask people to intro themselves here, because if you intro yourself in the other channel, it can kind of potentially just only get lost in that channel rather than coming here. And people do exactly what I'm doing now, scroll through, see who's here, whose names do I recognize, etc.
Yeah. And then also rating, who are those people that I don't recognize? And I think that's where you jump into a specific channel, like, maybe you jump into regional and you go, okay, so who are those people that are posting and commenting? I don't actually know them. And that's, that's what leads into that connection, and go, okay, well, I actually don't know Katie from Mesh Point. So, I do, but, then it's like, okay, I might reach out to her because she's got some interesting stuff. So as much as it is, okay, I know all those people, that's awesome, it's about going into those channels and finding those new connections that you may not have come across before.
Yeah, and it is also that targeted content, because not everybody may be interested in a you know, a curated list from a regional perspective, or you know, things that Segra is doing, which is focusing on the regional areas. But you find your tribe is really what we're trying to encourage people to do. And that's
Yeah.
kind of a sentiment that we're seeing internationally. And it's one of the principles that say, you know, oversees the Kauffman Foundation, which is really big in kind of international approaches, really kind of led with some of these thoughts. And I bring that up, and that a lot of this work's been going on for some time. You know, Di and I are just kind of appropriating a lot of different things that are happening and giving it a shot here. So that's a little bit about the Slack channel, what you can expect. It's been a pretty interesting week. We've seen some things like there's a lot of stuff happening in manufacturing. For example, you know, there's been some conversations around some of the changes that are happening of manufacturers saying, hey, how can we help? And that aligns a lot with some of the hackerspace, makerspaces, where there's a bit of activity around people actually doing some 3D printing for different products. What is the role of local government, which we're going to talk about in a webinar next week, and some of the local government responses and how that is going, and also some of the different state responses and the stimulus packages, and some accountants are putting together some really good overviews. You have one here from Troy, and there's another one happening in the actual coronavirus channel as well. So it really is just finding those different sources of information.
Definitely. And I mean, again, but there's so much information in there, and I think when you do come in here, don't get overwhelmed, and take what you can and give back what you can. It's I had a bit of a guilt moment yesterday because I wasn't putting up much stuff, and Chad's turning away doing what Chad does, and it's like, that's okay. You know, we all have a role and a place to play here, so try not to get too overwhelmed. But yeah, I think for me that this week it was like, okay, we've been going sort of hard for 2.5 weeks on this, and it was like the first moment I came up for air, and I imagine there's a few people that didn't go through that this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'd close off by saying, just follow your energy. You know, come in here, take what adds value, browse a little bit, consume what you need, give back where you can, and look after yourself. It is going to be challenging times. We're delivering this not to build an empire. We didn't set out to actually create anything great, apart from wanting to add value and have a positive outcome for the community, because there seemed to be a bit of a lack for bringing ecosystem leaders together. And as long as we achieve that, I think it'll be a success. What do you reckon, Di?
Yeah, I think like watching those connections and, you know, the data that you guys are pulling together about how that's working is super interesting. And you know, it's that reaching out and connecting virtually that we really need to see. And I think what I've noticed as well this week is that, you know, innovation is, and these innovation hubs and leaders are at a time where they are so relevant to their local communities at the moment. And, you know, I think, you know, pulling this out and being able to offer that back to your local community in some way, whether it be local government or business chambers or whatever it is, you know, we've been doing this for a while now, guys, and it's our jam. So, you know, broaden your ability to, I guess, or broaden your audience, I should say.
Yeah. Definitely share it with other people where you think this is their jam as well. Send on those invites and bring on people to the community. We were asked just this last week, so what do we think success is going to look like in the long term? And that really made me think about it and think about success in a traditional hub. 3 things that we could use to measure. You know, one of them is just sheer volume, but success isn't necessarily everybody posting once in a channel to blast their particular thing. That's not community. That's just promotion. And there'll be a bit of that, and that's okay, so other people can share what's happening. The second one is, if I'm physically going in there and posting a lot and sharing a lot, and it's just Chad's communication channel or Di's communication channel, I don't think that's a success either, because it can't be built around us. We're doing a lot of activity now, but that's simply to seed and to mirror the kind of behavior that others may pick up on, which leads to the third thing, which I really think is the true part of success, which is, are people making those connections, interacting on their own, and it's the person-to-person interaction within the particular channels, building these sub-communities. Really, that's what we're after. If that happens, it is a success. We're pulling the data right now, working with some pretty interesting people, which you might get on next week to have a bit of a chat around what's happening with the data. How do you measure your community if you're building up a Slack community? We'd love to share. We're trying to make this process transparent, hence this bit of a yarn that we're having now, which we'll aim to keep up every week or so. as well as the weekly webinars we have, which we're sharing out. So we'll share out more. Please join the Slack and we'll keep you updated. Di, anything else to add?
No, just thanks, Chad. It's a wild ride and I'm enjoying it. So
Awesome.
good luck to everyone out there. Stay safe.
All right. Thanks, guys. See ya.